POE Ruthless mode. Okay, so as you may be aware, a few weeks ago, POE introduced Ruthless, a mode which attempts to up the difficulty by making drops incredibly scarce, as well as changing a few other things around. So I thought I'd run through my build, which should carry you to maps fairly safely. Why maps and not endgame like most builds claim, you may ask? Well, if you can be bothered with the grind, then sure, endgame is possible, I guess. But good luck, as with the drops as they currently are, you'll be hitting level 100 well before you ever see a red tier map. Okay, so arguably the biggest change in Ruthless is the lack of movement skills. This means if you get stuck, there's no frost blink or flame dashing out. We do still have access to Cyclone though, which allows us to pass through enemies or ice barriers or the like, so we'll be using that. We also don't want to ever get slowed down by grasping vines or temporal chains or whatever else the renamed AN mobs have now. There are two classes that can innately avoid this: the Trickster with his one step ahead and the Juggernaut with his unstoppable. Trickster is very energy shield focused, and while normally this would mean a stronger endgame potential, with almost no uniques to speak of and crafting being quite the luxury in Ruthless, life build actually comes out on top. So, we're a Juggernaut with Cyclone. What else? Well, for any hardcore build, there's really only three things you need: soaking ability, sustainability, and damage. Let's start with soaking ability. Unlike claims and patch notes saying that spell suppression is intended to complement evasion builds, in hardcore it's absolutely mandatory for like 99.9% of builds. The only build I can even think of that doesn't require it uses a unique flask and does some tricks with ward. We don't have access to the gear required for that, so yeah, we'll be heading to the right side of the tree. If we were the Trickster, we'd probably be heading to the left side of the tree to get stun immunity, so either way, this was always going to be a bit of a spread out tree. We'll get some other defenses as well, but spell suppression will be the big one. Next, sustain. This one is super easy actually, as we're a life build and we're already going to be using Cyclone, so we'll just use claws as well. A decent claw with 40 or more life per hit should last you most of the game. Okay, lastly, damage. So in PoE, in order to get the damage you need for endgame, you generally need to increase your damage on 3 different axes, which then multiply together. For instance, if you're using a big hit skill, you would work on increased hit damage, generally with a bigger weapon, more damage, and crit multiplier. As we're already confined to doing small hits with claws, we'll be looking to a skill that doesn't factor in hit damage: Corrupting Fever. Here we can work on increased physical damage, increased damage over time, and damage over time multiplier. On paper, the damage won't look like much, but especially without supports, Corrupted Fever is about as good as you can get, as almost no mobs have any resistance to physical damage over time at all. In fact, if there are any, it'll be from one of the new creature mods that I'm not 100% familiar with yet. So yeah, whatever numbers we can get on paper, we'll be doing 100% of that to nearly every creature we encounter. And for our last skills, we'll also throw in Molten Shell and Infernal Cry. By making our Walk Rise instant from the tree, we can cast both of these without interrupting our Cyclone, and when not supported, these are arguably the 2 most powerful gems in the game. If you haven't tried them before, give them a shot sometime. I think you'll be surprised at just how effective they can be. Okay, time to go through the build step by step. So, Juggernaut. We are going to start by getting life and armor, as Juggernauts are prone to do. We'll come down here, we'll race up to the Sentinel node. You should be able to get this by the time you're fighting Merveil. The 10% to all elemental resistances, specifically cold, will stand you in good stead. Obviously get as much from items as you can, but this node will certainly help. Then we continue, straight line logic. We're going to come all the way up here, get some life nodes. There's a couple of little damage nodes in here, which we won't hurt. We should be able to make it to Trickery, increased damage by the time we're fighting the Act 2 boss. He can be a bit of a pain if you don't have enough damage. We will come through for some regen and the main core of our damage over time multiplier. Okay, so the reason for going up here, by the way, first, is because these are pretty much the only int nodes on our tree. There's another one here. So by the time that we get here, we'll be looking at making a switch to Cyclone, and Cyclone requires a claw, as you know I've covered earlier, and claws require ints. And if you don't have the items for the ints, then the build can fall apart if you haven't made this dash early. Okay, once that's done, we're somewhere in Act 3 now. We come down here, we get these for Dominus, the two plus 5% elemental resistance nodes. If you need more, there is a 15 to all just within dashing distance here, and you can undo it later. I don't think you need to do that. There's a 5 that we'll be picking up here, which you can also grab. This should be enough with what you're... I'm showing you the method that I used, and I think it's enough. If you need more, feel free to adjust it on the fly. This is one of the reasons that I'm running through the build rather than just letting you copy and paste the end, which you're also welcome to do, of course, but I figure clarifying all the choices along the way can only help. Okay, once we're through here, we by this stage, start of Act 4, we should have our Unstoppable. We're feeling a lot safer now. We then come down through here, can't be leeched. There's plenty of leech monsters nowadays. They seem to be everywhere, so this node is just useful. But we get it on the way to our Call to Arms, which makes our Warcry instant, which should happen in time for Piety in the Bales of the Beast. I don't know what she's called, Piety Aberration or something. The one that spins the lightning beam at you. It's being able to take care of all the little critters that she pops up all over the place with one spell every now and then, I find invaluable. Okay, so after that, it's time for another nice long jaunt. We're going to come all the way down here, get some life nodes, get some more spell suppression, movement speed, which is invaluable because we're not guaranteed to get it on our boots. Coming down here for the best node in the game, in my opinion, it is enemies poisoned by you cannot deal critical strikes. So we're using claws anyway, so we're getting 10 and 10, 20% chance of poison on hit with attacks with our claws, and some claw bonuses. But being immune to critical strikes, we're hitting creatures often enough that even if they get us with one critical strike before we poison them, they're not going to get us with two back to back. And this means that our life sustain, our recovery that we're getting from hitting with claws, which isn't stopped by creatures that say cannot leech life or anything like that, we still get life on hit. This is preventing the instant death which can happen and make you cry in hardcore if you're not ready for it. So yes, we should be able to get that by Katava, and Katava, Act 5 Katava, is the one that, if he double crits you, you're in trouble, so that's really handy. Okay, Act 6, we're on the beach by this point. A +5 to elemental resistances can't hurt, but we are going to be working through, get some life nodes, get some life nodes. This here is the last of our damage for a very long time. We will take 40% increased damage with skills that cost life, on top of the increased physical damage and the damage over time multipliers and all that sort of stuff. This will set you up. This is pretty much the build I had for fighting Aberath in the intro to this video. That's enough damage. Any more than that is going to come from support gems, from items. We don't need any more off the tree. Okay, we're on the beach now. We take the +5 to elemental resistances. We'll also come up here and take immune to corrupted blood. Now this is important because at this stage of the game you'll be starting to see the odd creature which has corrupting blood, and they're a pain if you're not ready for them. Hopefully you'll get this node before they start being everywhere. If you're unlucky, you'll see 2 or 3 first. Yeah, this is... I'm trying to time this tree so that you get the easiest run through the game. Okay, once we've got that, we're coming up here, a little bit more travelling. More fire resistance. By this stage, we have a maximum 80 fire resistance and a lot of damage over time. This means that if you pick up something with max fire resist, like if you're amazingly lucky you can get a Phoenix Shield or something like that, we can switch very easily into Righteous Fire. Yeah, at any point really. We just need the items. This is just keeping our options open. Ideally, the best pickup that we can get for our build is actually the Herald of Agony, because we've already got some base poison damage and we're doing so many hits with our claws. If we get that, our poison goes up to a 40% chance, and the Herald of Agony will just explodes things. We're doing so many hits, we'll get so many virulence counters, we'll keep it up to about, I would say 30, 34, 35 violence counters is not beyond reach for a normal fight. Failing that, we would like things like chance to poison on hits, turning our Cyclone into requiring life. I forget the name of the gem off the top of my head, would be amazing as well, because then we don't have to keep on casting our Corrupting Fever. You need to know what you can move into, but one of the reasons for focusing on fire over the lightning or cold is just to keep the possibility of Righteous Fire open. Okay, so at this point we have all the basics of our build. We have all the stats that we need. We have all the defenses and all the damage. Our next bit is the last little bit up here. We'll take our suppression, spell suppression, suppress 3% of suppress spell damage. We'll also take this node here. This gives us around, it might even tell me here, we've got 76 here. A good pair of boots will push us over 100. This is all the spell suppression we're getting off the tree, but 76 this one can give you a little bit more if you happen to have high dexterity items. This is enough off the tree to clock 100 with items which you're going to get from doing tier 1 to 3 maps over and over again, which there's nothing you can do about that because of course the drop rate sucks. Okay, lastly, the last interesting node we need is Resolute Technique. We're not doing anything to do with crits. We're just going to be sitting back, making sure that we never miss, so that we've got a higher chance to poison, so that we always get life back with our claw. This is, again, the base. Once you've got all of these nodes, you should be approaching, I would say, Act 10 Katava. You've got what you need to take him on. From here, it's pretty some life nodes, I'm sorry, I did miss these. I like to get these first, just because without Pantheons, I'm a fan of Rislatha as the Pantheon node, just to refresh my life flasks. I find this makes up for it. That's not a perfect replacement, but if you come across an AN mob or whatever they're called now, and it drains your life flasks empty, it's nice to have a backup if you're stuck on a labyrinth trap, and there are times when life flask gaining a charge is good. Okay, so this is your Act 10 Katava. From here, it's almost all life nodes. We'll take 2 over here, maybe even 3 because that's a 6er. We'll take 4 up here, if I can see them. There they are there. We'll take some life nodes up the side. We'll take some life nodes up here. If you need the extra damage, this is a pretty good damage node, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. There's also some life nodes with some armor around here somewhere. There they are. By this stage, we're starting to push the quite high. There are some. We haven't got gems, which pretty much we're just going to be using for life. Maybe some stats. If you pick up a gem, great. If you don't, because it's not at all guaranteed for a long time anyway, then you don't need to take those nodes, obviously. There's also some nodes over here which give decent life. And now we've got 2 nodes left. We could just add it to life. Personally, I quite like taking over here, where is it, 10% less damage taken from damage over time. The reason for this is that bleeding can be a pain. If you've got enough bleeding on you, there's enough stuff to worry about without bleeding and poison and everything else happening. You might also consider nodes in the middle here. You might take 50 to life, or you might take 10% increased life and 10% reduced recovery. It depends. All these last nodes, we're talking about way late game here, and by then you've probably changed the skill tree around to suit the support gems that you've picked up anyway. But as you can see, we can get plenty of life off the tree. We're at 260% already, and that's fine. That will keep you going, and that's it. Hopefully. I should point out, 2 gems that I didn't mention. We take the Fire Elemental for that little bit of extra damage in Act 4 because our build can handle it. We've got the stats for it, and we can use the damage. Like early on especially, our damage is atrocious. And we also take a Vitality Gem just for the extra regen. It's offered to us as quest rewards. We don't actually need to trade in our gems to Siosa for any specific support gems. We actually, any specific skill gems, we actually get them all just from the campaign. I will point out on the tree I like to take down here, endurance nodes is just nice, extra physical. It can make up for not having the gear early on, and late game it's just a nice bonus. And then this one I find incredibly strong because we're always at maximum endurance charges, 8% reduced elemental damage. We've got 79, 80 maxes. I think we're 80 for fire, 79 for the others. With the extra 8% reduced elemental damage taken, it makes us just a tank. We're not falling over, especially because by the time you reach maps, or by the time you're doing maps, you're going to be so over leveled. You can be 10, even 20 levels over the map that you're doing, and you don't have any other options because you just haven't got the drops to go any further than that. Combined with this should get you through the game without dying, no problems. The only caveat to that is, and I apologize for this, there is no easy way to do Innocence in Act 5 with this build. You get offered a lightning flask, one that ups your lightning resistance and reduces damage taken from lightning attacks, as a quest reward shortly before you have to fight him. I strongly recommend taking that. I recommend, if you haven't practiced the Innocence fight, maybe practice on standard or something. It's the only risky part of the entire process. Apart from that, you should have rather easy sailing from the very beginning of Act 1 all the way through to until you get bored at level 100. If you've got any questions, feel free to comment below, and I promise to get back to you before too long. And yeah, otherwise, maybe I'll see you around the POE neighborhood sometime. See ya.